everybody on this whole side came in all at once. So, good morning. I'm really glad that John let me know it would be casual Sunday today. I was telling Mr. Tim these are the nicest clothes that I have with me, so the VBS timing was perfect. I'm gonna pray and we're gonna get started. This is gonna be a pretty free form service today, so it's gonna be fun. And we have some special music prepared that I think some of y'all might have heard some of the songs that we're gonna do. So let's pray. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this building with air conditioning that we can meet in. Thank you for everybody here today and your word that you've preserved for us and a great VBS this last week. And I thank you for all of these things and I praise you for them in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we're going to have some special guests do the music today. So come on up.
Let's go to the jungle and this is our plan. Discovering secrets made by the great I am. Journey from Genesis to Revelation. To know where you're going and learn where we began. Let's go! Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! We began with the great I am. Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! We began with the great I am. Oh, let's go to the jungle and this is our plan. Discovering secrets made by the great I am. Journey from Genesis to Revelation. To know where you're going and learn where we began. Let's go! Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! We began with the great I am. Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! We began with the great I am. We start with creation, then corruption, catastrophe, confusion. Christ, the cross, then consummation, and Jesus reigns for eternity. Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! It began with the great I am. Hey, hey, hey! Can you hear our jungle jam? Hey, hey, hey! It began with the great I am.
God spoke the word and there was light. Made the sun and moon so we could sleep at night. He created all things, animals and trees. And don't forget, he made the manatee. A manatee, swimming in the sea, it's a manatee. God made it all, creatures great and creatures small. He made you and toad sloth, the really slow-mo guy. He created all things, animals and trees. But don't forget, he made the manatee.
Manatee, manatee, swimming in the sea, it's a manatee.
God made it all, creatures great and creatures small. He made you and me, and no mistake, he made the manatee. Pink river dolphin, God made that. And he made the dive frog, as a matter of fact. Green parrot, well, he made that too. The best of all, he made me and you. God made it all, creatures great and creatures small. He made you and me, and no mistake, he made the manatee. God made it all, creatures great and creatures small. He made you and me, and no mistake, he made the manatee.
But I think my favorite motion to any song I've ever seen is the manatee motion. I think this is pretty hard to beat. That's pretty funny to me. We don't have a lot in the way of announcements today, except to thank our VBS volunteers. Raise your hand if you are a part of VBS, of putting VBS on, of helping kids. That's awesome. Thank you guys for volunteering for that. This is the best VBS I've ever seen. Eden and I went to a VBS when we were young, and we very much disliked it. We didn't like the food. We did not really like the other kids. And yeah, we wouldn't have had anything to say for the video of people's favorite parts at the end of VBS. Speaking of that video, are we going to play that today so that people can see the highlights of it? Awesome. Let's watch that.
My favorite part of EVBS Jungle Journey was the games, the food, the classes, my jungle leaders, and Jungle John.
Playing games. It's craft. You like the game.
Is the memory verses. If I choose my favorite thing, like my favorite, I'd probably have to say maybe the pizza. But hey, if I had to choose like 2 or 3, I think the pizza, the like games, and maybe like the challenges they do every day.
Puppet show. And Edenville. When we play the games, I like the glue game because we're like, ooh, 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 ooh. That was so silly. Sing the puppet show, and we have best teachers. Crafts. I'm playing with Justin. And with us getting shoot by the water gun.
Oh, my favorite part of VBS is the games.
Making new friends.
Games.
Dinner.
The games.
Crafts. No games!
Games.
The songs.
My favorite part of VBS is the games.
Puppets.
Is the games. My favorite part of EVS so far is probably getting to do the games, crafts, and lessons.
I think the songs.
Singing, the games, the food, or the Bible lessons, or the crafts.
Food.
The food? That's your favorite thing, is the food? Yay!
Good job!
Crafts. Crafts.
And my favorite part about VBS is the games.
Extra $10 for the double thumbs up at the end. All right, we're going to take up our offering today. do not believe that it is a requirement, but we believe that it is something that we should do to give because we have to pay money to get electricity for the AC. So if you like the AC and you're grateful for that today, that's a provision through the offering. So let's pray for that. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving hearts and your love for us. We can love each other because you first loved us. And thank you for modeling that and giving everything for us. I pray that you bless this offering in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to start today with a game. Anybody want to play a game? This is one of my favorite games. It's called Good, Bad, or Ugly. I'm going to say a name that is found in the Bible, and you have to say if you think that that person was a good guy in the Bible, a bad guy in the Bible, or ugly, which is kind of both or neither, something like that. The little ones can go out. I think this is would probably stump them all. Anyway, these are some difficult names, but I'm going to ask you to raise your hand for real if you think this is a good guy or a bad guy or an ugly guy. So, name number 1, Lucius. Raise your hand if you think Lucius in the Bible was a good guy. All right, we got 3 people. Raise your hand if you think Lucius is a bad guy. Raise your hand if you think he was a little bit of both. And raise your hand if you have no idea. All right. Lucius was a good guy. He was a prophet and a teacher at the church of Antioch, and he's mentioned in Acts 1. Next guy, Eglon. The name is Eglon. Raise your hand if you think Eglon was a good guy. Nobody. Raise your hand if you think he was a bad guy. We got 5, 6, 7 people. Raise your hand if you think he was ugly. A little bit of both. Got about 4 people. Well, I'll give you an example of that. Demas. Anybody know who Demas was? Demas was a missionary with Paul who then became entangled in the world and forsook Paul. That would be under the category ugly. Little bit of both. He was good for a while, and then he was a really bad example after that. Eglon was bad. Eglon was the king of Moab who oppressed the Israelites in Judges 3. Next name. So good job. We got about a 50% accuracy rate so far. All right. Next person, Pudens. Pudens. Don't recommend naming your kid that. Was Pudens a good guy? Raise your hand if you think he was a good guy. Raise your hand if you think he was a bad guy. Raise your hand if you think he was somewhere in between, kind of an ugly character in the Bible. Raise your hand if you have no clue. Kind of a pattern. Pudens was a Christian from Rome. He was a friend of Timothy's ministry, maybe even a supporter of Timothy's ministry. He was a good guy. I got one more name. It's one of my favorite names in the Bible. Shealtiel. Raise your hand if you think Shealtiel was a good guy. All right. What did you say? Did you say he has main character energy? There you go. All right. We got 3 for a good guy. Raise your hand if you think Shealtiel is a bad guy in the Bible. All right. We got 2 hand raises. Raise your hand if you think ugly. A little bit of both. And raise your hand if you have no clue whatsoever. You've never heard that name. I really, really want a way to name my kid Shealtiel one day, but Shealtiel was a good guy. He was the son of Jehoiakim, who was a king of Judah. He was the father of Zerubbabel, who was a rebuilder of the temple after the Babylonian exile, and he was in the lineage of Jesus. He was a ancestor of Mary, I believe it was. So technically Mary and Joseph, I guess. So because they were both descended from David's line. So the point of playing this game, I hope you've had fun. I should make a game show out of it one day. And Shealtiel did have main character energy. The point of this game is to show you these people, some of them were really significant in the Bible. Like Shealtiel was not just a good guy himself, but he was the father of another really important guy. The Eglon, the king of Moab, was a really bad dude, but only half of us even guessed that he was a bad guy. All of these people lived really significant lives, and they're recorded in the #1 best-selling book of all time. One of the only books that people base whole live decisions on. And yet, despite all of that, we don't even know what they did in their lives. If you have your Bibles with you, go ahead and meet me, if you will, in Ecclesiastes. I know you probably hit Ecclesiastes all the time. If you go to Ecclesiastes 12, and I'll meet you there. Ecclesiastes 12, and I'm going to start in verse 1. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1 says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened. And the doors shall shut in the streets, when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and the desire shall fail, because man goes to his long home, and the mourners go about in the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity." This is pretty involved poetry, and there's a lot of symbolism here. But what it's describing is things wearing out and people getting old. When the keepers of the house tremble, anybody know what you say on a ship if the ship is about to go down to say, we need all the help we can get? You say, all hands on deck, right? Because your hands are the keepers of the house, just like a crew are the keepers of the ship. When the keepers of the house shall tremble, in verse 3, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few. Here's my grinders. And one day they're going to be few. Very few grinders one day, especially because I ate a lot of sugar when I was younger, so I don't have the best grinders. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Skip, skip, because man goes to his long home, and the mourners go about in the streets. This is coming for all of us. I know you already knew that. If you didn't know that, I'm so sorry to burst your bubble today. But we're all going to get old one day. And one day we're going to die. Now, we know that spiritually there's a physical death and there's a spiritual death that people can die. If you have that physical death and you haven't put your faith in Jesus Christ, then you are going to die a second time, and that's your spiritual death. But there's also what I've heard referred to as a death, metaphorically speaking. They say that a man dies 2 times, once after his heart stops beating, and once after someone has said his name for the last time. Because the memory of you is gone, and everything that you did in your life is gone. You don't know if Shealtiel is good, bad, or ugly, even though he was starkly a good example from the Bible. Everything that he did in his life, it's lost its relevancy for most of us, and that's going to happen to all of us as well. But they haven't happened yet. You still have the time right now that God has given you to redeem. You aren't old yet. I know some of you are probably thinking that you were old and you thought that I was going to go there, but you're not old. You're still here right now. You are still feeding yourself. If you are still walking without assistance, if your hands can sign your name at the bottom of a sheet of paper because you can hold them steady enough to do that, you still have time to redeem. You have all of these things. Not everybody has that. My dad right now, he can't really walk without help right now. It's not because he's old. It's because of medical complications, but some of you are a few years older than my dad. I'm not looking around when I say that, but you can still do things that he can't. That is a blessing from God that God has given you, and it's up to you to redeem that blessing. You could do amazing things in your life. You could do huge things that you would think you'd be remembered forever. But, Mr. Tim, you know a lot about cars. Do you know who invented turning signals? I'd say that's an important invention. Would you agree? Could we all agree that turning signals, just as an example, that's a really important thing? Somebody left their mark on history, and yet you don't even know their name. Even if you know about cars as a hobby, you know engine model, you don't know the name of a super important person. Not to throw any shade at Danita, but I asked her who the first president of the United States was a couple weeks ago. And she paused. Danita's not from America. She paused for a long minute. And I said, please tell me you have an idea. And she said, it's between 2. She got it right, but she had to really think about it. We all know who the first president was. Abraham Lincoln, right? So, no, I'm just kidding. But we know that, but that's not even universal knowledge. The first president of the United States, we don't know that. And he's long gone. But it's all forgotten. The keepers of the house trembled, and he's gone to his long home like all of us will. But that hasn't happened yet. Like I said, you can still see. Your arms are still functional. You can still chew your own food. Your body isn't dust, and your spirit isn't with God yet. So you can still redeem the time that God has given you. The only things that you can do that will actually last is not invent a turning signal. It's the things that you can do for God. Verse 9 is where we turn a corner. Verse 9, Ecclesiastes chapter 12 says, and moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Now, that last verse said, the preacher says, all of this is vanity. This is useless. I see all of these things and all these great things happen, and yet the rich guy, the poor guy, they're both buried in the dirt at the end of the day. He says, I see all of these things have happened, and I see all this wisdom that's been taught. Ecclesiastes, in one part, says, there's endless knowledge. There's no end to the writing of books and knowledge, and yet it's all vanity. At the end of your life, you die. So what's the point? And it says, and yet, in verse 9, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. Literally.
one book before. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. So, verse 13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It's not just part of the duty of man. It's not just something that you should do on the side. It's not just something that you give 10% of your time to this. This is the whole duty of man. If you do nothing else but fear God and keep his commandments in your life, you will have lived up to the greatest purpose that you could possibly have. Greater than being the first president of the United States. Greater than inventing the turning signal. Greater than building the walls of Jerusalem after the release from Babylonian captivity. The greatest thing that you can do is to fear God and keep his commandments. You have time to do that because what you do for God will last. I know John loves to quote Jim Elliot. He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. This is a way that we can give up our time, our youth, our lives. And when I say youth, I'm talking about all of us. If you can do the things that I described, you're still young compared to eternity. We have these gifts. We can trade that, the time that we have now, for something that can't be lost, something that will last forever. Now, you didn't know who some of those people that I read were, but whether you knew it or not, whether you knew their name, even if you've forgotten them or never heard of them, your life is different because of what they did. The world that you live in is different because of what they did. Even though you didn't know their names. And one day in the future, somebody is not going to know that you ever existed. But they can still be influenced by the life that you lived. There are people in my family tree who I don't know their name. I don't know what they look like. And yet my life is different because of what they did. We have a relative named James Taylor, who I didn't know about for my whole life until a year and a half ago. James Taylor was a lawyer, and he was a member of the Cherokee Nation. And he successfully sued the federal government to get this huge millions of dollars settlement for the Cherokee Nation. That affected a lot of people. And I didn't even know that he existed. But what he did still mattered a little bit. Not in light of eternity, but it did still matter. What you do for God is going to matter even more than that. So, the author, even though he said all of these things are vanity, we're all going to die, he didn't become a nihilist because of this and say there's no meaning to anything. He still sought out God's wisdom and handed it down to us. And we still have this thousands of years later because this man was so wise and he recorded the wisdom that he learned in his life. And he said, look, you have this time to redeem. And because the preacher was wise, he taught the people. The author handed down his wisdom to us. Now, I don't expect anybody here to be as wise as Solomon, but you do have gifts that God has given you that you can hand down to somebody else. They could be little gifts, they could be big gifts. You never know what you say could influence somebody for the rest of their life. Caleb said something years ago, just talking to me, just two guys in a car listening to cassette tapes. And it just changed my life. It's not relevant to this discussion, but I was like, wow, I can think of two things that you said to me. That's two. This is a double bonus that changed the way that I looked at life and different circumstances and stuff. And you never know how deep the wisdom that comes out of your mouth could be for somebody else. I said something to Benjamin years ago that was negative to Benjamin, and he told me about it the other day. And he said, man, it was years before I got over that. And I had no idea. I barely remembered it. I was like, I don't remember saying that. I remember saying something way worse than that. But you never know what you can say, how that can influence somebody. So what can you hand down to somebody else? And I want to encourage you to think about that. I was telling Mr. Jack about some of the kids from VBS. They came back to Grace Farm. That's where they were staying. And they were so jacked up about GBS. They're so jacked up about VBS. They're like, man, guess what? You'll never guess who my teacher in my class was. And I was like, who? And I tried to guess, and people were like, no. Phoebe's parents, man, they're so cool. They taught us about creation, about how God made everything. I was like, man, and Mr. Jack, super humble, so based. He was like, oh, no, it's all my wife. I'm just along for the ride. I was like, no, your name was in that. They cared about that. They're going to remember that, man. They were eating that up with a spoon. And God is not unrighteous to forget your labor of love. What you're doing matters for God. So thank you, everybody, again, who participated in VBS. You have no idea how much that could mean to some of the kids. I don't know if y'all saw how much fun they were having up here this morning, but that's amazing. So there's other labors of love that you can do as well. And I want to encourage you and exhort you today to do those things, to hand down the gifts that you have to somebody else. It could be something practical that you teach somebody. It could be something spiritual that you teach somebody that changes their life. And I want to encourage you to do that today. Does anybody have a thought, a comment, question, something that you want to share on the tail end of that before we pray and close? Yes, sir.
Turn signal was invented by a lady.
Did you remember that, or did you look that up? I knew it was looked up by a lady because of that Ford advertisement they put out. Yeah. You said her name was Florence Lawrence. There you go. Important lady. Changed all of our lives. Yeah. That's awesome. Anybody else? Is there something that somebody has handed down to you that changed your life and they probably never realized it? The gospel. I mean, I think you won the contest with that. Yeah, the gospel. Somebody took their time to share that with you at some point in your life, and that took them 2 minutes. I wrote a song not too long ago that is from the perspective of somebody who nobody shared the gospel with them, and it says it would have taken 2 minutes, but for me, it's now eternity. Because nobody took 2 minutes of their times to share the gospel with me. That's the best gift that you can pass on. Let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for everybody here. Thank you for your word, God, and the wisdom that has been handed down to us. Thank you for the faithful messengers who have passed this word down to us, who have passed the gospel down to us, God. I thank you for the faithful messengers who carried the truth to the people that you intended to receive it. And I thank you that we are on the receiving end of that in so many ways. I pray that you would help us to be faithful messengers of the truth, whether it's the gospel, which is the greatest truth that we can share, or whether it's other wisdom from the Bible, from Ecclesiastes or Proverbs or the New Testament, or even just Genesis, like in VBS, talking about the 7 seas of history and the creation and your rescue plan for humanity. God, I pray that you would help us to carry that truth to the people who need to hear it. I pray that you would open our eyes to the things that we can give other people that they need. Many times they're starving for because there's nobody else in there who's crossing paths with them to give them what they need. And maybe you've equipped us to do that for them. I pray that you would remind us that what we do for you will last in eternity. And I thank you and praise you in all of these things. Amen. You guys have the slides for that song, The Family of God? We got to sing that, or I mean, John's probably going to ask me, well, but did you guys sing the Family of God song, though? Let's sing that together. And please turn my microphone off for it.